President are John Reynolds, John McNamara, Eileen Down, and Gary Earls.
I don't think I have my agenda. I have everything else.
I did that. I got all the way down to Northampton. Called my wife up and said, where did I leave all the stuff? She had it all.
I'll go.
Well, there's certainty.
Debbie
yes.
will have a copy of it.
You're certain you know where it is.
Happens all too often, Mark. That's the only issue. You gotta fix that roof on your house, by the way. What do you do, have buckets underneath the sign?
It's actually still not leaking, which is why I've been holding off, but yes. And it's only the roadside
I
that's
know.
bad.
Well, that's the point. It's the wrong side, facing the sun and all that bad stuff.
Yeah, but it faces, the rest- I don't know
West
why,
and
it's
south.
right at the peak. The other side is not bad at all, there's a few missing tiles, but
Well,
it's
as you
not.
come down towards your edge there, it's going out in the middle. It's in the middle, it's losing pieces. I got some buckets just in case you need some.
Guess
You're a
that's
heart, John.
the problem of living off the main road. It's like, yeah, you got some problems. That's no fun.
Gotten to the point where a roofer was driving by this summer and stopped and gave me his card.
Yeah, that's
It's like the
tough
mason.
sign.
The mason does the same thing. Oh, look at that chimney. We finally did our roof downtown last October. And
Great, thank you.
Best thing we ever did, finally. How you doing?
We're gonna get our agendas, then we'll get on the road.
Could be worse than the guy I just saw in front of our store.
What did he?
Well, he claimed he was in maybe the 2nd Street apartment building and he got beat up.
What?
Yeah, terrible.
In the building?
Terrible shape, yep.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Now, which apartment building?
But above, between the uprights, the 2nd Street bar there. He's all,
Was it beat up by his wife or something else?
no, some guy and his girlfriend, another guy.
Mm. Was he going to the hospital?
I think they took him away.
Thank you, I do feel a bit better.
Yeah.
You'd be figuratively beaten up, but
Yes,
not for real.
fingernail was all way off. It was horrible. He was in real bad shape.
His what was off?
His fingernail was torn off. Yeah. But the kid at Jake's, who is the cook, saw a kid sort of like walking away and said, oh, he's known for beating up older people.
Why is he still walking around?
Well, they're looking for him. He's from Greenfield. It's one of those things. Doesn't
Exactly.
really lives anywhere. He just runs around, squats in his friends' apartments, and
Beats people up,
yeah, older people can't really
defend himself.
defend themselves.
That's good news.
There's a
That's a winning combination.
Let's all eat together tonight. You could leave earlier if you
They
want.
said older people. We should be.
Okay, you can leave first.
You do that.
You and I will go out together.
Want me to give you a ride home?
Oh, hi. We'll stick
going?
together. Good. How are you?
Thank you.
I think the first item on the agenda was minutes, so. we're
Yes, I'm
introducing
sure.
everybody in their minutes.
I'm just waiting for Gary. He's got our agenda, and here he comes. Great. So, thank you. I guess now we can formally open the meeting, since we all have
Thank you, sure.
agendas.
You can do that. That's good.
Sure.
And the time now is, what time is it, John?
According to my clock, you have 5:07.
That's what I have now.
How lucky we are.
5:07. This is our lucky day.
Yeah.
You too? Okay. That's a quorum. We've got a quorum for the time. And the
Here
first.
comes Jason.
Oh, good. Hi, Jason. We were just opening, and it took us a while to determine the time. And I would say that the first order of business is to accept the minutes of 9:10. Do I have a motion to do that?
Accept them as written.
Thank you. Any, a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion? Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Yes, I read them.
Me too. Great. And a motion to accept them or vote on accepting them? We have a motion.
Aye.
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 Great, thank you. Okay. Great. Now, my theory on the rest of it is up for suggestions, but I sent out the rough draft to everyone, and hopefully you had time to read that as well, and reflect on it, and offer suggestions. And I think that if we can just offer suggestions, does anybody need a copy of what was sent out? Yeah, I did.
I didn't print it out, I read it, but I didn't print it out.
Okay, anybody else need? So we have two pieces. We have the draft summary, and then we have the draft obligation scorecard, as it was called. I have some changes that have been suggested already, came to me directly. And so I'm just wondering where we want to start, how we want to do this. Do we want to go around? Did people agree, disagree with the summary? Too much, too short, too little?
As everybody, why don't we take a chance, a moment for him, make sure everybody's read the two drafts. I mean, they're say a lot of the same things, but in different ways. So I think perhaps, why don't we,
Yeah, I could use a little more time looking at it.
okay. I guess what I've been trying to do is start off with yours, I mean, and kind of look at it and see what we have, pluses and minuses on it. And then you summary, and then
Then integrate.
integrate it, or look at Gary's. Gary was really, spent a lot of time doing this. I think he's a hard taskmaster, but I think he was really thorough too, so.
And yeah, I think, I mean, at some point, everybody should have a chance to either put in, take out, or agree, whatever. So John, you have the floor.
Well, I think your summary of the sequencing of things is correct. And I would think that was fairly well clearly stated. Paragraph 1 of your item is fairly clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all agreed on almost everything in it in terms of that. As for the second paragraph, I think that was also agreed upon by the group.
Okay.
My suggestion would be, why don't we take a couple of minutes just to review your document, Eileen?
Okay.
Take a couple of minutes and
Are you talking about the draft itself or the second part? Which part?
no,
The draft.
I'd like to just kind of take a couple of minutes to review this.
Okay, the draft that I wrote.
Yeah,
Yep, okay.
just to kind of familiarize myself. I've read it already, but I want to read
Mhm.
it again.
It was this draft in large part to Jason's note-taking.
Mark, have you got copies of these? Do you have these?
I don't have them with me, no.
Have you looked at them? I don't know, did you
Well,
see
let me
these?
take a quick look. If I haven't, I'll.
This is-
Yeah,
Yeah, and I have what you sent to me.
and I've seen Gary's.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have Gary's?
Go ahead.
This is yours, right? This is mine, yes.
Yes, Gary.
I don't have Gary.
Thank
Pardon my scratching eye.
you.
Don't let that in.
Do you have any extra copies we could read along with you?
Actually, no, and it's a draft, so I think until it's less.
Well, once it's handed out at a public meeting, it's public information, but, so there's no way to,
You haven't been recognized by the chair, Mr. Langnick, and we're not gonna take any comments from the public or from you.
Eileen, is that?
I just said that.
Actually, you have to be noticed, acknowledged from the chair.
And we're not gonna take any acknowledgements from the public.
We are not. This is a public meeting and you're welcome to be here, but we really have to get through this, and I'm hoping that we can get through this tonight.
I can't speak real loud, so I'm gonna just kinda, remember that I sent you an email about a couple of minute meeting minutes. Have you been there? Did they go with the computer crash? Did they?
As far as I can tell, I could not.
They did.
Yeah.
There were three of them. Two in August and one in September.
Yes, I don't think I'll look one more time, but I did not.
What I'll do is I'll send you another email,
Okay.
just to highlight those three meetings.
My first look did not.
I didn't think so, yeah. I didn't think so. And you had mentioned that at the time, a long time ago, that
Mhm.
there had been a crash and you lost some stuff, so.
You saw what Mark sent to us in terms of,
I did, and I actually have copies of that.
yeah, I think that's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
I think that's a good sidebar to kind of follow,
Mhm.
in a sense, to see if we've
Yep.
done that. I think we plan to, but whether we do or not is what ultimately is the question.
Yeah.
Do we ever get there?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think short and concise is,
Oh, Mark's looking for it.
oh,
I don't know where he is.
I don't know, he went out, he left here.
Who did it?
hello, my dear.
I see him, I'll put a note here, thank you.
Tell him we got
I
the,
think that's for his recording.
for the clock.
Oh, for the clock?
It's for the
Oh.
clock.
Need a
Okay.
battery?
Yeah.
Well, the one that was up there said 9 something.
Yeah. I think they changed the battery last week.
Oh, did
It's probably
I
not.
think it's for the clock.
Do we have that in the budget for next year? New clock.
So, for people to a point where they can make recommendations, or a hard time?
I don't know, get too pushy on the idea. I said what I said initially, so how do you want to go from that?
Well, I mean, you said what you said, but have you changed what you said? Initially, you said that the first paragraph you thought was okay, the second paragraph, yes, and the third paragraph, I think you said yes. Mark's rendition would make the second paragraph shorter, which I have no problem with.
I think being succinct is good.
Yes,
We got the battery.
yeah,
Here you go, sir.
sorry.
I went up to get it and it got delivered.
Wow.
So that means that the first sentence is removed from the second paragraph. Is
Okay.
everybody following that? Jason, did you see
Where is
this?
it, Irene?
The second paragraph. This is Mark's stuff. In the second paragraph,
Oh.
I suggested the first line of the second paragraph be
Yeah.
removed.
First line of the second paragraph
First line of the second paragraph.
is being removed.
If everybody is in agreement?
I think that's important that that stay in there.
The first line?
Of the second paragraph.
Does it matter concerning our review? I mean, the issue is settled, is it not?
It is, I think the first line is fine to come out. It kind of set the scene, but I don't think it's relevant to the outcome.
Mhm.
I thought the outcome, consultation with town council was important to just clarify the legalities of all of this, because there are two similar things that are happening in town, and they're very different.
Well, they're not under two different sets of rules. That's what it amounts
Exactly,
to.
exactly. Which is what this, the rest of
I
this
think
says.
also that the report should contain an historical record of what's transpired.
Isn't that a question of detail, though?
And that was an issue.
How much do you want?
I think a lot of it should be in there, quite frankly. You know, because I think it exposes a lot of what we've been dealing with.
Are you talking about the second paragraph or the first?
Pardon me?
Are you talking about the first or second paragraph?
Well, I'm talking about the whole draft overall, but specifically, I mean, for example, in the first paragraph, no letter of intention as requested in the contract was received. It's not requested, it's required in the contract,
Mhm. That was actually a suggestion of Mark's. It is required.
you know.
For me, I think it's important to move forward. I'm not
Well, I
sure
think we're
that,
gonna move forward, but I think we need to know what we've been up against. I think that needs to be stated in the document.
I don't have any strong feeling about that one way or the other. If you want to change that to required, that's fine by me.
also, in this first paragraph, Board of Directors, it should be. The second line. Formal name. And actually, I put down 2003, and it was 2004. In terms of the historical aspect, I'm not really in favor of it. Again, I think moving forward is important, and we can go back and back and back and back. And I'm not sure it's productive.
Yeah, I don't,
I think we want to
short,
work
shorter,
forward.
shorter is better.
Yeah,
Forward, yep.
succinct.
John, do you have a feeling on that?
Yeah, I think we should move forward, but I also feel like that should be kept somehow, like a record, you know, I mean, that's
Mhm.
obviously information, things that happen, but maybe not part of this document, I don't know if that makes sense. Or does that create more work?
It creates two sets of
Two
records. Maybe
two
Mark
records.
has a
Well,
suggestion.
wouldn't it show up in the set of records they're going to give them? These are the chronology of what's happened, and the fact that this didn't come in, or didn't come in, would take care of that, I would think.
Yeah. Whatever everyone thinks that it's that this document's purpose is served, and I don't know how much detail we need to get into.
Right. Okay, now I have a question. Mark, do you have an answer? a suggestion.
I've got a comment. It should be in the minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be in the final report.
Right,
Okay.
so it is documented.
Enshrined forever in the minutes. Yeah, it doesn't need to be in the final report.
So all of these documents that are on the table today are part of the minutes? Or is that an overstatement? Yes, okay. And what you said, John, so what everybody's talking about is gonna be in the minutes. And that's it. So all that Gary has said and written is a part of the minutes.
Right, the minutes of a meeting are what happened, a certain
Yeah, that's
description
right.
of what happened in the meeting.
Mhm.
You're trying to write a report to go to the select board.
Mhm.
Two different things.
It can be two different things, right? Right, and the chronology that you mentioned, John, my heart just stopped for a moment when you said that. What chronology are you talking about?
I've lost my train of thought, you got me.
You said
Back.
chronology of, it sounded to me like you were saying a chronology of documents, that we would develop a chronology of documents that we received.
Well, one of the things we're gonna be giving them is all the stuff that we've collected, we're gonna have to give them one mass of data, all the stuff that we collected, and they're gonna pass on to the select board, so they have it to look at also, should they wish to, God help them. But anyway, we're gonna give, I think that was Mark's request, and I don't have any objections to it, I think we can do that. But they're dated and we have them, and for whatever they're worth, the data's there. If there is no letter, there's no letter. We didn't get it, they didn't get it. I mean, we can belabor it, but it's what it is. And if you wanna say, in fact, we didn't get one, that's fine, I suppose it saves them having to look through to see what's in the pile. But I think it's fairly clear with what we've got here, frankly.
Okay, let's move through this draft. So we're on to the third paragraph. Is everybody,
I have some issues here.
I think there's a lot left out on the first couple of paragraphs.
but you realize that what you've written will be a part of this meeting?
No,
and
it
part
won't
of
be, not unless it's in the report.
Well, it can be
That's not,
requested.
that's not why it was distributed.
Mark said that everything on this table would be part of the minutes.
Not my thing, not unless it's in the final report.
It doesn't have to be,
I'll
it doesn't have to be.
pull it off right now. I mean, I'm adamant about, we've been pussyfooting around with this review and this organization and the operation of MCTV and MCCI for months. And to shove a lot of stuff under the rug does not fit well with me, doesn't sit well.
Could it be better just succinctly summarized that we evaluated, we looked into legal consequences of the renewal process?
Well, I just state it right there. You understand, we don't have to put in RFP, different set of rules.
Yeah.
We can ask for it, but we don't have to. We could have asked for it if we wanted to, but we
Right, but it
didn't.
was it's two very separate things, what the select board had to do because of the lack of the required letter was one thing, and so they might have, through legal ramifications, had to request an RFP right off the bat. We could have gone through our review and also come to an RFP, but it's two separate things.
Well, arrived at it for two separate reasons.
Yes,
The first one you mentioned was if it came under state law, and that was true, RFP. Since it's federal, it is not under this. If we want them, if we suggest to the select board that they
Yes.
run an RFP, that's a whole different ball of wax.
it was always an option. It was never taken off the table, but the select board did not have to call for an RFP because of the lack of
Right.
required.
If we as a board want to suggest that as one of our recommendations, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Right. And we voted not to.
I thought that's what you did.
Great.
I, if you remember, was the lone dissenter.
Yes.
I remember.
Well, suffice to say, John, that your lone dissent on that motivated us to check it out a lot more, to find out whether or not we could move forward without an RFP, or whether or not we'd have to have one issue.
I believe we could have moved forward either way, but I mean, I don't want to make this a big issue.
Sure.
I mean, I think we got a lot more to do.
A lot more.
I think that issues are, I don't think we're recommending it, and as a board, we're not recommending they have an RFP. At least the board isn't. So I think that's off the table. I think what you've said is enough at this point. If they want to see what our minutes came up with, it's already documented. So now, we're looking at the third paragraph, if we can. And Gary, you know, in terms of what we add or don't add, I think let's keep that in mind, we can do that, but let's try and get a rough framework of the summary, and then we can add or subtract as we need. And I think that's what Eileen's done here, and I think it's what you've done pretty much.
I've, for example, I would suggest our minutes, we could, for an example, so far I've got that we're reviewing the draft of the committee's recommendations, both by Eileen and suggestions from Mark. And then I say, Mark, for example, had recommended deleting his discussion of the lack of a written letter of intent to renew from MCTV. And we can now say whether we agree with that deletion, but it's in the minutes if that's enough of a visible track record. Do you think is that enough visible track record, or do you think do you think it needs to go to the select board?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, the final report is going to be what the CAC as a whole decides. It's also the option for anybody, either one of us or all of us or none of us, to speak individually to the Board of Selectmen when they review the report. Not as a representative of the CAC, but as your own personal opinion. What I'm suggesting here, and my intent is that there's an awful lot that went on behind the scenes that was not necessarily fun. To coin a word, a three-letter word. And so my feeling is that a lot of that attitude, a lot of the deflection, a lot of the deception needs to be outlined so that they know what we were up against, what we were trying to deal with.
Are you saying that was going on through the whole process?
Yes.
That you guys have been,
Yes.
Wouldn't you characterize it as much more of a defensive mode from their point of view?
Yes.
Okay, but that's natural, I would think.
Well-
Not good business perhaps, but natural.
Not very cooperative.
Well, let that be as it is. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. I think from the stuff that was on, what is that, the other, what is it, thing that Mick runs, all that chatter was certainly obvious. And then, but I don't think that helps us in the report to the select board.
Well, also, John, bear in mind, something that just popped back into my brain, is that regardless of what the Board of Selectmen do, it's gotta be approved at town meeting, does it not?
The contract, though,
Yeah.
Yes, so the contract has to be approved in town meeting.
Mhm.
And they, I would assume that they're gonna be privy, town meeting people are gonna be privy to the report.
I would think it'd be part of the documents, yeah.
Right.
Would have to, somebody will have to do that. I don't see any reason not to.
Something will, I don't know if it
Provided
would
it
be
isn't 10
this
pages.
report, however we finish it, or,
Well, it'd be the final contract,
yeah.
whatever they put together.
and some of
Plus
them.
I would suppose they might pen in a few words if they want to. I would think we would submit a report that would be part of the town meeting data for everybody to look at.
Yes.
Once it goes to the select board, it's open meeting. It's everybody's. And as a committee, I would think we would want it to be that way. So yes to you, Gary, I guess is the answer to your question.
Something would be there, I'm not sure what, how
Why
much,
not
how
why not a
little.
duplicate of the report to the select board?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think we want to write another one.
I
Thank
do
you.
not.
All right, let's keep it simple. All right, let's keep going on this one then. Gary, are you, have we gotten past the first two paragraphs?
Are we back? Well, I mean, I think what I wrote out for the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, and what Eileen did are comparable, said in a different way, and I added a little more color commentary.
Oh, I gave mine away. You have my copy.
But they,
Oh, sorry.
but they basically cover the same thing.
Yeah, I think perhaps to be very blunt, Gary, some people are more diplomatic than others in their presentation.
Well, sometimes there's a time for diplomacy, and sometimes
I
there's a
agree.
There's a time,
Then there are shades in between.
absolutely.
That's like calling color in a football game. The announcer is the color.
Jason, you're in the middle. You wanna move? Do you wanna give some thought to it?
I favor diplomacy.
There you are. You're in.
And just sit right there.
I think, for example, in Mark's suggested first paragraph, he clearly states, no letter of intention as required in the contract was received. Then kind of and doesn't that say what we need to do? So that if we take out the sentence from the second paragraph, or is it important that Mark was the one that brought that to us?
It wasn't particularly, I was just kind of trying to do,
Yeah,
it really
I
wasn't, it
think-
was a
I think
select board
What's
thing.
important is the acknowledgement that they did not
Yeah,
adhere to the contract,
yeah, well, that's, you
and
know,
that there was a rationale presented by them as to why that didn't happen, which turned out to be bogus.
I think that's details that.
Yeah, I don't think we
are-
need that part. Doesn't solve the future. Doesn't help us going forward.
No,
Well, I think though what it does do is it sets the tone
What?
as to why it's been so difficult to move forward, and the problems that we're up against, and what it is that we're gonna have to deal with down the road.
I think we make our own
Because if that
promise.
stuff isn't resolved, if that stuff isn't,
Okay, that'd be resolved
Addressed.
between this committee and the people
then
they're
you,
talking about?
then you're gonna have the same thing going on for the next 5 years.
I would hope not. I would hope working together to clarify. I think there are a lot of holes in the contract and what's required, some not, and some holes. And I think that moving forward, I look forward to a very cooperative relationship.
I doubt that.
Well,
I
let's
doubt that that's gonna occur.
Well, let's assume, let's put it in the middle and say maybe we get halfway. How's that? Can you buy that one?
Oh, I think we've done more than
No,
halfway.
I say in the future we'll get halfway to what our either side goal is.
Halfway to,
Either side of the goal. So in other words, less friction one way, less friction from the other, and perhaps we'll get some forward motion because that's what we're trying to
well,
get
like you
to.
said, John, there's a time for diplomacy, and we're
Always
trying to be diplomatic.
trying to get something done.
Yeah, I
Practical
mean,
is shorthand. Okay, I
let's-
mean, to me, I understand, I read what you wrote, Gary, and I understand what you, and you put in more than I have, to be honest with you. You guys have been in the, as I used to be told as a teacher, you're in the trenches. And so,
But I'm also very much a team player with this committee.
okay, but I'm not saying you
I'm
aren't.
not looking to be some rogue warrior here, John.
So, do
think
I
I
have
used
this,
the wrong analogy.
this is Gary's or yours, and this is,
This is mine and this is Gary's. No, excuse me, this is
Oh,
mine,
yeah.
this is
Mark's.
Mark's.
Okay.
You don't have a copy of Gary's.
Yes, Gary.
You have it somewhere
Oh,
in your computer. So these are some of the corrections we were making.
I see, all right.
So basically, we've used Mark's suggestions
So,
throughout the first 2 paragraphs.
all right.
This is the second paragraph, we're going to take out that first.
Mhm. Yes, because he has summarized that in one sentence in the first paragraph.
Basically. I have.
Yeah.
Okay, Shall we move to the third paragraph? Basically, again, just, kind of grounding information. What
Well, there
happened.
is the follow-up letter of May the 1st that provides significant detail for the April 24th meeting.
From the April 24th meeting, which is,
Right, which would address some of the detail that's not in here, that would be a duplication if it were in here.
right,
But that April 24th meeting and the letter that I drafted and sent out talked about who was present, what transpired, et cetera, et cetera. So that's certainly part of the record.
mm-hmm,
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt you can add a lot more to the third paragraph if you wanted to, but I think you've hit the points that need to be hit.
yeah. I mean, I could have
That was
gone
my
through
opinion
each
on it.
meeting and all of that, but some of those minutes have been posted, and others will be.
And they're available anybody wants. Yeah. But I don't think we gain anything by
Going on and on and
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
on to the next page.
Unless,
So are we okay with the first two paragraphs? Is that what we said?
we just actually got through the third.
Well,
Unless-
let me hang on a second.
And John, do you have any thoughts?
Cool with it?
And are we going as, in which version, your version, Eileen?
This is the version we're
Using items.
working off of,
Okay.
really. And, yeah, I mean, we're really trying to integrate the two, but this is the base
Mhm.
that I sent out, and then this is Mark's response,
Okay.
and Gary's responses.
I
So,
don't think I've got Mark's response, but it's all right. When did this come in?
I would, if I could, to beat a dead horse for just a second, I'd like to go back to the opening statement in the first paragraph. And rather than say requested a meeting, I would like to go with what I suggested, which was a joint, that there was a joint meeting, that everybody agreed to that meeting, that we didn't necessarily request a meeting. You know what I'm saying?
on April 24th,
Yeah,
Right.
that's what he's written.
we did request a meeting.
But
It was a joint meeting, you're absolutely
Joint meeting
right.
was held,
Right.
that everybody wanted to have. That's all, but that's not, I guess it's not such a big deal.
I'm sorry. Is that- Do you have extras there? Is that what you're
And
saying?
then-
I have extras of Mark's, I don't
Okay,
have.
hang on to this one.
And this one.
So where are we? Where?
I think we're rounding the end of the third paragraph.
I'd be in favor of using it the way it is. I'd
Thank
be in
you,
favor of keeping it the way it is.
thank you. And there's something in italics, and I wasn't sure if I kind of moved over to opinion or if that should really be included.
I'm sorry,
Well, I think that was an hour, clearly expressed several times, in
Okay.
different ways, different people.
Yeah. In the third paragraph, towards the bottom, there's
Last-
something in italics.
Next to last sentence. She's,
Actually,
I think that was the issue.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't think you have to beat around that one. And then the latter part of that sentence
And it should
also
be
was the
kept
issue.
in.
Okay.
The latter part of that is also true. Sometimes unmanned for posted hours.
I think I put unstaffed.
On what?
Unstaffed. I hope I put unstaffed.
You wrote that the station is sometimes closed during posted hours. That's what I read. I think it's, either way, I don't really, whatever, either way you
I'm
want to
sorry,
put it.
okay, tell me where you were, John.
Bottom of the page, first draft page, third paragraph. Lack of
Oh, I see.
access to
Yes, yes,
station
yes,
card,
yes.
which is what we just talked about.
Yes, yes.
And the last sentence of that paragraph somebody
Mhm.
closed during posted
Posted
hours,
hours, yes. Yes,
for whatever reason.
yep. Yep.
That's what we want to solve, that part of the issue.
Mm-hmm, yep. So now on the second page, does everybody agree with the third?
How are we doing on the third paragraph? All aboard? All will say aye?
I,
On the third paragraph, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Second page. I think this paragraph is what we've talked about many times.
Mm-hmm. That's really basically from our minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, I thought, had Mark's suggestion of including that.
That introduction in.
Fourth
yeah,
paragraph
yeah.
is of nice organizational
Mhm.
improvement.
Where do you see it?
You see that Mark had basically suggested we remove that fourth paragraph.
First one on page 2, you mean?
Yeah, the first one on page 2, and then he has basically included that as the first bullet point in our recommendations. I think that's a nice.
Yeah.
Right, so it's
Oh, I
really
see.
just the first line, and that becomes the first bullet point. And then I had included a reference to that line as a bullet point, and that comes out,
Mhm.
the second to last
Yeah.
point. So that first line comes out.
It becomes the first bullet point.
Yep.
So did you delete the first line? Are you deleting?
It would be deleted.
You take it out,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we would
Did
do.
you see Mark's? He basically takes that out, but he adds it.
Oh, okay, so it's gonna become the first bullet point. In his, oh, I see, Mark has it recognized. Has his own rendition here, got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, yes to taking out the first line of that first paragraph.
Making it the
And-
first bullet point.
Wait 1 second. Taking out the first line of this paragraph and also the fourth line, which begins a contract of 30 months. Taking that out as well, and that all becomes the first bullet point.
So the last,
So you're trying not to be redundant, is that what you're trying to get to?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I had, yeah,
so you're saying the
That was a
last
concern.
sentence in that paragraph is deleted, period, not put anywhere else?
the second to last, the one beginning with contract.
That's the one that you're pulling out.
Right, I'm sorry,
You're gonna
Gary, what
leave,
did
the
you say?
CAC would
Totally
also
con-
like
totally
to recommend the
confused.
following
Okay.
contract terms, items. Leave that in, because that leads you into that whole list.
Right,
I would leave that in. The CAC would also
Right.
like to recommend. Leave that.
right. So this paragraph, the first paragraph, the first sentence is no, the second sentence is yes, leave in, the third sentence
Wait,
is,
what are you talking about?
okay.
I mean, I see you deleting stuff and I have no idea.
Okay, the first sentence starting with the CAC.
So this is it. That first sentence, starting with the CAC, is taken out.
And put down for the first bullet point.
Basically, yes. That information becomes the first bullet point. Then the second letter of that, the second sentence of that same paragraph, starting with there are a number,
Right.
that stays in, and then please.
That stays in.
That stays in.
So that'll be the first sentence of that paragraph?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then please see attached stays in, and then the next line, beginning with a contract
Right.
of, that is out.
That's out totally.
That's out totally, and the last.
That doesn't get put anywhere else.
Well, it's basically, again, the same
just-
information in the first bullet point. It's not new or different information.
Okay, so that next to last sentence in that paragraph is just being deleted, period.
Right, that's what's being said.
Okay. And what about the last sentence?
That stays in. Unless somebody has an objection to it.
I would take out the word also.
Yeah. Correct,
Not would also, but just would.
right.
Or we could just say recommends. Not also like, I think we just say the CAC recommends the following contractual items be added to the forthcoming contract.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Run that by me again, you would say what?
Instead of saying the CAC would also like to recommend, just say the CAC recommends
Okay, yeah,
the following.
fair enough.
And then so the next thing we have are all the bullet points.
So the first bullet point would come from Mark's suggestions.
Right, the recommended 30-month contract.
So that would be number,
Number one. And we
One,
can
yeah.
number them
that
instead
makes,
of
you
dump
get you up
them.
to 9 at this point.
Mm-hmm. So does that begin to work for people?
Now, there's one thing I was gonna add in this sector.
The bullet points?
Yeah, I'm not sure, that I don't think it actually belongs in the bullet point. The problem of having enough people feeding information in, outside filmmakers and so on, and I'm not sure where this goes, but I know I've heard from other people, other ways of solving the problem of getting producers and using other forms of video that can then go back into the studio in some way or another. And I guess I don't think I want to add it here, but I want it in somewhere, because
It could be in the
I
discussion,
will get
'cause-
some information on that that I can feed to.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure where it should go in this report, but go to the station itself. Hopefully they'd use it. I know other stations do this, so I don't know why they can't.
Which,
I mean, it's certainly been discussed. It could be
Yeah, I
part
know,
of
I know.
the
I think
discussion.
we should encourage that
Points.
to be looked into and then reported back to us as perhaps a committee to see what they've done.
which point are you referring to, John?
Well, in terms of methods of getting more input, one of the things we come up with constantly is the issue about getting local and
Original.
new things produced by people around town or
Correct.
whatever, around the area. And I know other areas have mechanisms for doing this. And we've been told that basically they can't do it here for some reason, I don't know why. But maybe I misunderstood that, but it seems to me that's something we can work on and feed to them as a suggestion within this report. We'd like them to follow the following leads in terms of increasing local productions.
Yeah, my take on that is this. Recently on MontagueMA.net, Nick Muller made a post, well, I think this is important, though, Justin. Made a posting and a comment about
Yeah, I know, I heard.
staff are not responsible for going out and filming events and producing,
Not asking them for it. That's not what I'm
I
saying.
understand,
I understand that, yeah. I think what you're saying is different.
not producing local content, which I think is a valid point.
But it has.
But they are responsible for helping create the climate so that it will happen.
I think I mentioned that
That's
in
it.
my
Okay.
rough draft.
Um,
And that's what
I
I,
think,
let me respond to
yeah.
that. So that's my comment. And I refer to that in my own write-up.
I saw that.
That while that may be a valid point, they are responsible for providing access and making the workings of the station accessible to the public. So rather than point to the public and say, well, you're not coming forward, it's like it's beholden upon MCTV and MCCI to
More like
invite the
saying-
public, to
right.
solicit the public, to encourage the public.
I just don't want to react to that particular line of reference on that, from that source. That's a waste of time for us.
I understand.
Let me-
Okay, and I think we need to come up with a positive input rather than reacting.
Sure.
Let me just reference an article that John found and I brought to the meeting because you were not here. And it was about the Brattleboro station. And is that what you're thinking of? Different, because there's been a lot of conversation about hating the editing and that's time consuming and
No,
daunting.
yeah, and that may be,
all of
I mean,
that.
I can imagine myself, I would not enjoy the editing.
Right.
Admittedly, like any good quality work, some work has to be put in. How much, I don't know.
And,
But there are
yeah,
other ways to be explored is what I'm really saying, and I think
Right.
they're out there.
right.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So, I mean, we can add it to the discussion point that we hope other venues will be explored to open the access to more people.
Other, how should I phrase it, other technological possibilities. That's basically what it amounts to,
Is
iPhones and everything else.
this something that, our bullet points here are recommendations to the board
For inclusion in the contract.
for inclusion in the
This
contract?
really doesn't fit that.
And then,
I agree,
right.
but somehow
And then
we
there were
need to get it in.
discussions. I mean, that's how your notes were, and I thought that that was helpful because, I mean, these are the recommendations, and then there are discussions, and I didn't
Discussion
think
points, right.
we should, those were important discussions.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's
so we could add
that's
that.
certainly valid for, and important for discussion points,
Okay.
even if it's not a contract bullet point.
So it just
Yeah,
should,
I concur with that.
yeah.
I
So,
think we need to get it in there,
yep.
somewhere.
So we can put it under discussion, and John R. Is suggesting other technologies
Yeah, I think we're in agreement
to
on
be
what we're
used
talking about.
to
yeah.
entice the public.
Well, and in some ways to make it easier.
Well, that's part of enticement.
True,
You don't have to feed everybody all the time.
yes.
You don't have to what?
Feed everybody all the time.
Probably best, though.
Hungry people work harder.
To
Slimmer.
entice more participation.
I'm not sure where we put it.
Maybe give it another thought, and you could email it to me.
Yeah, I might be able to get something in writing for that too, and suggested options and so on, ways of solving the problem from another source. We'll see.
We did spend a lot of time, though, on that discussion. So,
We're gonna
have
go
we
through the bullet points?
pretty,
Yeah, I
the
think that'd be a
recommendation
good idea.
bullet
Let's do
points?
that.
Right.
Yeah. So we have gotten, basically,
So
I think, through the
is
first one.
Fine.
Yeah,
I think that's fine the way it was
way Mark suggested.
suggested, yeah.
Okay. And then there were some questions in along some of these as well. The next one, that board member position have a term limit of 3 years, and we voted on that. And then, but I think that we talked about implementation, but it wasn't clear to me as I was writing it. And it felt like we needed just a little bit more discussion on it.
It seems to me like this when you phase in the number of people eligible for a board, you have to have a timeline as to how soon it has to happen, because you can't do it instantly, because if you
Right.
have a rotating time period and they're in office, they can't all automatically come on and then go off
Go
at
on
the same time.
exactly,
Which you want
exactly.
disaster.
Yeah.
And I guess the reality is they obviously have had no success getting directors. Nobody wants the job apparently,
Well,
which doesn't surprise me too much. It's a nasty job. But the point is, how do you get around that? How
what
do
happened to
you-
that positive thing we were going for? Well, I mean, well, I think,
What
I
was that, the
think,
incentive of the pay? All these big corporate people get great funds for directorship, don't they? Doesn't give out candy bars.
Well, I think part of the difficulty to begin with is the constitution of the board to begin with.
Well, that's a whole different ball of wax that we can't.
And that's why the question about they'll happen retroactively, I think needs to be implemented.
I think that the strategy I see is that first of all, we've established 5 as a minimal. Our suggestion is to establish a minimum number of board members, and that we agreed on would be 5. So we could have anywhere from 5 to 9 members of this board of
Correct.
directors. And so that there are 4 people now, it seems to me that there's a certain amount of recruitment that needs to be done, and if one more member comes on, that brings it to 5, which is now the new minimum. And if another board member comes on, then perhaps one of the older, long-staying board members can be phased out. And as another one is recruited, then another person can be phased out. And then really to build. I don't know that 9 will,
But that premise is great as long as there are actually bodies out there willing to fill these slots.
well.
And they need a directorship that has different skills. You get a directorship because they do something, they fulfill a function on your board.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure they've been able to do that very successfully in the past.
Well,
I imagine
it's
it's
hard.
hard.
I think
It
you're
is
right,
hard,
that
very hard.
they haven't been successful.
But I mean, we're writing a format to follow,
Yep.
in the hopes that it is indeed not only followed, but,
No, I'm just talking about the practical, from their point of view, the practical side may be tougher than we're
yes.
saying.
But we
I don't
need-
think it's gonna be easy
No, I
at
don't.
all.
But we need somehow to reconstitute that entity.
We need a
Oh,
plan.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. The
Good.
question is, I think we need to be realistic, and as you have been around in town, you know, all of this has come and gone, up and down, more than once.
Right.
And it's a function of individuals leading, to be blunt.
Yes.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, in the last paragraph, I say that we're aware, in this new economy, people don't have the kind of time. It's eroded a volunteer
I'm not so
base,
sure
but,
that that's an accurate comment, to be honest with you.
well,
I
I
think that
don't.
may be part of it, may not be all of it.
Yeah, I think all of the boards in small towns have trouble, so I don't think it's gonna be easy, but I think that we still need to try.
You can't even get people to come to town meetings, so.
I think a lot of times it depends on the viability and the stature of the organization in the community.
Well, that's
Yeah.
very nice. We have a great group of people that we were able to amass
We've
over
been
a
able
couple of
to
years.
amass a terrific membership on the CAC. No, seriously.
Let's move forward before we all.
You know, I'll make a point though. There's new people moving into this town all the time. We just rented some apartments, and we were renting to Hallmark students, and now we put it out to the world, and we're really surprised
Good.
at individuals that are looking to live in Turner's Falls. So, be it volunteers to do their own programming or on boards or stuff like this. So we need to have faith in the community
Yeah.
that there are going to be more people that we can
You
that we
tell
can
them
tap
how many-
or
yeah.
Shanghai them.
Are you
Yep.
telling them how many committee members we need?
I mean,
And what
truly,
spots are available for them to step into?
We don't want to daunt them.
no, really, I just going back to what I said, I do feel very fortunate that so many people wanted to join this and have really put in an incredible amount of time. So, that does buoy me up, and I think that there are people in town who will do something. I mean, if they have an interest, if we can make it more interesting or something,
Make it viable.
serve hot dogs at the meetings,
There you go.
pizza.
Specialty foods. There we go. All right,
But
so
I think
So we've
I'm
got our-
hopeful.
our 8 bullets, are
So
we
we're gonna
agreeing?
put in the
So,
the
let me
comment
just-
about retroactive?
Yeah, so, I guess it's not really retroactive, but,
How do you say that?
that as the
I think
membership
retroactive
increases,
suffices.
the rotation begins, as the
I think you make it retroactive with an addendum clause that basically says,
not less than 5.
well, meaning that when new people come on, then there's a change.
2.
So it could be that if one person comes on, that basically, that we don't continue just trying to get to 5, because from 5, they may never get to 6 or 7, which means that the sticks in the mud are still gonna be around. So there has to be a mechanism, so even if, because right now they're constituted at 4. So if one person comes on,
That's 5.
then one can go, and they can work toward 5. You see what I'm saying? That we,
I do,
that there's
yeah.
a certain amount of time to build up to 5, but you're not gonna build to 5 and create a viable organization as long as the lack of leadership is there. And that's,
I don't
that's
totally
really,
agree
that's
with
really
that.
what we need to do.
But
Anybody
is
have
that
a
up
feeling?
to us to build the leadership, or is it up to themselves to build that leadership? We can suggest what we want, we can put on paper what would be ideal, but we can't, unless we are all gonna volunteer as directors, do that. That has to come from that group themselves and their ability to work the community, to come up with the members that they need. And as you said, it has to come from being interested. It has to be something that people want to do at this point. And that means having an attractive agenda, having things that the general public wants to get involved in. If you're gonna put that limited extra time you have available to you on a committee, you wanna figure something's gonna happen. And that's what you wanna try and inch into here.
I think it needs to happen ASAP.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, but how you want, that's good to say. The question is reality.
How, yeah.
Well-
And I have concerns. I mean, we have set a minimum, and I think that we can't undermine that minimum number. So if we can get to 5, then for me, until a 6th person is recruited.
But then you're talking about a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 9. So just because you get to 5 doesn't mean that anybody's gonna go. And when you get to 6 doesn't mean that anybody's gonna go. When you get to 7, it doesn't mean that anybody's gonna go. When you get to 8, it doesn't mean that anybody's gonna go.
No.
So you're
that's
still
not what I'm
gonna, you're still
saying.
gonna have some of the dead wood, some of the.
That's not what I'm saying. What I said was, you get to 5, and as the 6th person is recruited, then one person can rotate off the board. And as another person is recruited, another person, depending upon the longevity of each board member, and I don't have that on the top of my head, so if they exceed the term limits that we've determined to be useful, then the second person would rotate. And maybe there's a third person that needs to rotate, maybe there's a couple more years.
But they may decide not to rotate.
Well, isn't that what we're setting up?
I don't think the way that it's earmarked now, no, I don't think so. That's my sense of it.
In your opinion, what do you mean by retroactively then, Gary? What does that mean to you?
Meaning people that are already currently on the board and they've done 2 3-year terms, that they hit their term limit already.
So they go, so we're down to 1 member on the board,
No, there's 2 people.
and then that's way below what we're
I
at.
think, yeah, I think
Oh, I
that's just.
understand
Way
that.
below your functioning
No,
level.
I totally understand that. What I'm concerned about is that right now there's 4. If a 5th person comes on, then those 5, the 4 currently plus 1 new one, can stay like that for a long time. Because there's no incentive. If they go out and recruit a 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th person, there's also nothing saying, because it says that it's from 5 to 9 people.
But maybe the fact that the CAC is now paying attention, that, the party will be over. Maybe people will be more apt to, they can choose to leave. That might also might be another thing, because things are changing, and maybe some of the old board members, as you say, maybe they'll be interested in leaving and doing something else. I mean, maybe the environment's changing that will encourage people to move on and give someone else another chance. Could happen naturally.
I can appreciate that. I want it as concrete as we can possibly get it, is what I'm suggesting, rather than going on a hope and a prayer.
So your suggestion would, if I read you correctly, is the contract gets signed, that means everybody on that board then is on the clock. The oldest person who's been there the longest is the one who would first have to click off in terms of a 3-year. The clock, in other words, it's signed as of this year. The clock for 3 years starts. At the end of that 3 years, that person's gone. The next one
No, if
is
they've already
online.
put in 2 3-year terms, they have to go. That's what
Well, since we
retroactive
didn't have a
is.
clock, we didn't start the clock. You're saying,
That's why
how
we're-
far back are you going?
That's why we're saying retroactive.
Well, how far back do you mean?
Retroactive on the term limits.
How far back?
Retroactive means from the time the contract goes into effect, that you look back and anybody who has already met the term limits as outlined in the bullet point
They're not gonna have anybody on the board.
Pardon me?
They won't have anybody on the board. They'll all be gone.
Well, what Eileen is suggesting is that if a new person comes on, then one of the older members would have to go. What I'm concerned about is how it is that we state that. How it is that that's exactly what happens, as opposed to the
Okay.
continued malaise and the continued floundering and the continued blah, blah, blah stuff that everybody knows we're up against. And that could go on ad infinitum. It could go on for at least another 3 to 6 years. So if you have a minimum of 5, and right now there's 4, and a 5th one comes on, then
We're back to 4.
Then
According
there's,
to your-
but
with your
there's no,
theory, it'd
but
be
there's
back
no
to 4.
motivation for any of those people to go. Because they meet the minimum requirement of 5. And even if you have 2 or 3 more people come on, there's still no motivation for them to go because the outer limit is 9 people.
Let me put it another way.
So they can play the game, they can play the numbers game as long as they want. I don't wanna have that, I don't wanna see that happen.
I'm not so gung-ho about playing a numbers game, totally. Seems to me we're looking for some quality, some skills,
Yes,
and if in fact we find somebody who's interested and wants to put the time and effort into this, which most of us don't, we should encourage that person to stay put. Now,
Yes.
this committee can certainly sit in on meetings and say, hey, look, too much dead wood around here, do something or else. But I think if we arbitrarily at this point say, the minute that contract's signed, the clock's ticking, you get a new member and you lose one. Basically, that's what you're saying. Then you're gonna get another member, which gets you up to 5 again, and we'll never get past 5 because it keeps rotating the prior people, some of whom may be fine, may have not been fine. But the point is, as you move down through the contract, you're gonna be losing people you may wanna keep. I think we're a little too arbitrary, I guess, on this automatic, on this click-click type
Has,
thing.
has our board in general been around for board members for more than 6 years now?
yes.
This current board,
Yeah.
yes, MCTV,
For lack of getting
MCCI,
anybody else to do it.
yeah, MCCI. yeah.
So I don't see how, I don't see much viability in making it completely retroactive because as you say, then our board goes away. And
Then it will stay the way it is,
I think that,
Well, maybe.
yeah.
until they decide to go.
Maybe, but if we have it, the desired number there, and if we have a discussion of the character of that board that we'd like to have in terms of skills, and we've already alluded to the fact that they want that too. They want specific skills and specific membership, board members, so that they can function as a real board. Now they just have a rubber stamp.
Well, and there are people on that board now that believe that they have the requisite skills. I don't mean as a total, but individually.
Okay, but they also have people on that board who realize they need more work, and I think those are the ones we want to encourage.
I don't
think it's a fine thread we're playing here, and I think you have to figure out which way do you think we'll get the best results from.
I think it also, I mean, it is a fine thread, but I think it also has to be able to withstand a long term of contract. Not long term of people I'm talking about, but it has to be able to prove itself out in the oncoming contract.
And the whole point of this is to make the operation work
Mm-hmm.
more effectively than we think it has. So
Absolutely.
we can't dial ourselves out of the game by having one piece of it dropping out all the time.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I understand, yes, I mean, I think both
You
points
get
are
the devil's
valid.
point of view.
But I think that there's a chance perhaps to be taken. And I think that, you know, it could work. And of course, it may not work, but then, you know,
Well,
the
it needs to be,
may not work
it needs to
either,
be
so.
reconstituted.
I think they need some new blood, no question about that.
And they need to get rid of some of the old blood. Or it's gonna stay, the malaise will continue. It will be under the same leadership, we'll be playing the same stuff, we'll be
Gary,
playing
that's
the
a-
same tune.
That's our community reacting, not reacting to when they should be. I mean, they need a different level of support from the community across the board to change that board of directors. They had different boards of directors over time, and as we all know, people have come and gone. But the ones who've stayed there, by default, basically, no one else wanted the job.
I don't think that's true, that nobody else wanted the job.
Well, I haven't seen any list of names. If you know people who want the job, that'd be great.
Well, I don't think there's been much publicity about, they're looking for people. I don't think there's been much of an effort. I haven't ever read anything about we're
Well,
looking for board
if-
members.
if our-
Any of these kinds of skills.
If our recommendation for going to a minimum of 5 is followed, then they're presumably going out to look for new blood.
One more.
Yeah,
At least.
at least one more, and the you seem to sense that the existing board is squashing innovation and outreach.
Dysfunctional.
Well, it may be, but I don't know that throwing them out helps or hinder throwing them out were to help new blood be productive. I think the new blood, if they come in, will probably just rise to the top and you know, get some things done. So I would not be inclined to make our term limit suggestion retroactive, but I think that, as I said, you know, we get at least one more, you know, new person on the board, and it's on record that, you know, we're expecting some turnover in the future. I think that might help
I think,
put the board on notice.
you know, maybe on our part as a board, we need to show up at some more of these meetings and say, okay, how are you making? I mean, maybe we ought to say, these are the things we want progress reports on down the road. What have you done to stimulate new directors? This is the kind of question we as a board can do when it comes up to that quarterly report.
I understand that, John, but bear in mind, it is not a town board.
What isn't a town board?
MCCI is not a town
Oh, I
board.
agree with you, but it's a town contract. And we have put
But it's a
limits in it.
private contract. And
Between they and us.
unless we,
Public entity.
unless we orchestrate the transition, I'm afraid it won't occur.
So,
That's my concern.
so when do you, so you're a proponent of retroactive, that all of the years of everybody should be considered? Or counted, yes, counted
With the
in.
clause that you're trying to get at, and I think we're trying, from my standpoint, and listening to you and listening to John, I'm trying to figure out what the clause would be. So if we institute the term limits and we institute the retroactiveness, how do we add a clause in there that allows for that transition to take place? Because if we put in the term limits and we put in retroactivity, and they have 5 board members, let's say they get one new board member, and people who have been on that board for an extended period of time can still stay there.
Yeah, there has to be a beginning
You see what I'm saying?
to the term limits.
There's gotta be a way to get beyond that.
Could it be just after the 5? Once you've reached
Then it
that
kicks in.
threshold, then you start to, and I know it will be hard to reach the 7 or the 9, but it's just now starting to kick in, but I think we should try to start at 5. And-
I don't have a problem with the 5, John. What I would suggest would be something along the lines that when the 6th person is recruited, the oldest established board member with the longest term then leaves. That's what because they've already met the retroactive requirement. And that's what I'm talking about in a clause to define retroactive and how it is that we make that transition. So that now you get the 6, one leaves, you're back to the minimum 5, so you still have the 5. When when the second 6th comes on, then the next person that meets the term limit requirement retroactively, they go.
The only problem is, where's the incentive to go past 5 then?
Well, I think first of all, the incentive needs to be to get done with the 2 that are in the way
Oh, you missed my
and
point.
reconstitute the board
Yeah.
so that you have 5, and then you can go from there with the new blood. Which would basically at that point be a newly reconstituted board. With 5 people that have not met the term limit stipulation.
We pay the board for every member. in
And then
addition
those
to
5 can then work on getting 4 more to max out at 9.
Gary,
But the longer members stay on that board an extended period of time, the longer we're gonna put up with the mess. quite frankly.
You may be right, on the other hand, you may not be. But I guess the point was that, I think if we're trying to provide a goal for them to reach, then we have to make it, there's some incentive to do so. If we do it such a way that we know we're automatically gonna fire all the lower bar, people who think that they put in their life's blood there, so to speak, whether it's true or not, we don't know, but if they think they've really put out a lot to get this going, and some of them do, whether we agree with them or not is a whole other ball of wax. Why are they going to bother to go any further past 5? They aren't.
Well, that
That won't produce the change that you want. But if we force the retroactive and say when they get to 5, the oldest one goes, you're down below our level again.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that you start with the minimum of 5, and the next person you recruit is the 6th person, then the oldest serving member leaves.
Why would they go for 6?
Why was it?
Well, I asked that as well.
That's the point that Gary was making.
That's the point that I made.
earlier.
I mean,
There's
that's the
there's gotta
problem.
be a way to structure this so that the change occurs in an orderly fashion, but that, because if you stay with the same old, you're gonna get the same old. Because there's no incentive to do anything. There's no incentive to change.
I want to recommend to the board which board members, to our Board of Selectmen, which board members should leave the MCC board.
I think
No,
that
We're getting a little
Here,
close.
you
Hanging in the
that.
square
it
lunch.
would be
close
recovered
there.
under the retroactive stipulation of term limits.
But also, I mean, we're not doing this for this moment in time, we're doing this for
Yeah.
the
Down the road.
duration
Yeah.
of this contract and then the
Assess-
next contract, and
Mm.
so that
Set up a
it's stable,
better situation.
predictable.
Mhm.
So we do have to think of how it's going to work best for this moment, but also down the
Right.
road.
And I think, you have to ask yourself, which do we want more? Do we want a larger body with perhaps different skills than we have now? Or do we want to sacrifice that perhaps to the issue of they're not rotating because they only have 4 members or something of the sort?
To-
I think
to-
that's a fine line you're playing here.
To address that, my sense is that if they continue with the board the way it's currently constituted, we're gonna continue to have the same old. That's the issue. And I'd rather take a shot with newer people and go through the transition than I would with the same old.
Why not simply then put a timeline on how much time they have to recruit new members before
Well, that might be a way of working through the transition.
within a year, they have to have picked up one more member.
I'd say way less than a year.
I've not recruited directors lately, so I don't know.
I mean, it could happen sooner, but there are also other
Needs
recruitments
to
going
happen
on.
sooner.
It,
I mean,
yes,
you-
but there are
Kick it-
other
kick it in gear.
recruitments. There are other recruitments going on too. 6 months is fine with me. 6 months is a good amount of time.
Okay, then
I'm
what? At
I'm
6
thinking
months, then
90
what?
days. 6 months for 2 new people.
2 new, now you just up the ante.
Well, I'm bargaining here.
There, yeah.
I'm negotiating
With what?
with my opinions. You know,
There's also got to be staff recruitment. I think that's, something to consider. I mean, time is time.
I mean, this
Time
is
is
all,
intrusive,
we're all,
right?
this is all an improvement over what has been, so maybe thinking that this will work, the 6 months is okay. Also, the hard work that everyone's done here, trying to figure out the way things should be done going forward is just, the climate may have changed. It all might be working. I mean, we also have to put the faith, just like we gotta put the faith in our community for volunteers, we gotta put our faith into people who might wanna be on this board. And who knows, maybe all of a sudden 2 people might appear. It might not just be a
Or 3
one.
or 4.
Yeah,
With filmmaking credentials.
who knows, could be
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't disagree with that. I think the climate is changing. The climate definitely needs to change. But I'm trying to find a way to make sure that happens.
But I think
Because
what,
I don't wanna come back here assuming this CAC is still constituted the way that, at the end of this 30-month contract.
Right.
And we're confronted with the same
Right.
situation.
But I think we're left with a balance, like, I don't know if it was Eileen or John said, that we have to, what we're doing also is gonna last a long time, even though we have concerns immediately.
Sure.
So we have to find a balance, we don't wanna squeeze the board right
That's right.
away. But, a balance that just kinda takes care of all of it, I think that's what's tough,
Yeah, finding this initial way to start it. And I'm sorry, I think I jumped in.
No,
the middle.
fine, no,
Yeah.
thanks.
I mean, I think that asking for one new recruitment in terms of the board of directors in a 6-month period, and this initial 6-month period, is reasonable.
I don't think so. I disagree.
Okay.
Should we put it to a vote?
And you would want it for 90 days?
I'd like to see one in 3 months and one in another 3 months after that to get to the 2 in 6 months.
How about switching it?
Pardon?
One in 6 months, 2 in a year.
Or what, then they're fired? MCTV is, the contract's null and void?
Null and void, right.
I
Well,
think,
no, I mean, the
it
contract
explodes.
isn't null and void, but it is a point in the contract that won't be met. So, I mean, I think we put this out in good faith,
Okay.
that, I mean, that's really what we're bargaining
point.
with.
Right.
We put it out in good faith that good people will be found. I'm certainly willing to call and explore the commitment of different people. I mean,
yeah,
look like you're in pain. What do you need to say?
I'm certainly,
If
I'm
it's-
certainly in favor of CAC members wanting to assist in that process. I don't think there's anything wrong with that,
Good people?
you know?
Okay, let me put it back into the
I mean, for
the
example.
realm of practicality.
John, let me just refer back to something that you mentioned a while ago, and has been a major important theme, which is with the school districts. We have the tech school, we have the elementary schools, and we have the Gilmonica Regional School District. I don't see why some of the educators couldn't be tapped. And there's a whole population of them, an enormous population of them. And part of the reason that they're not tapped is because there's no relationship between
Schools.
the schools and the.
And that's a whole frame of, I agree with, there's a whole area to be explored of how, when, and why. That has not gone as well as it could. I agree with you. I
Has it
had a whole
gone
bunch
at
of
all?
ideas, but coming back to our directorship here, let's see if we can close that out, finish that up, before we shift gears.
I think that the, as written, non-sustainable is a good, potentially sustainable mechanism going forward. We might want to accelerate the process, but we can't cripple the board
Right.
all at once. Maybe one mechanism that comes to mind, we could say, within a year, these term limits will apply retroactively.
That's an interesting way.
Give them a year, and then within a year, they
Term
know
limits.
that these term limits are going to apply. Make it
Write
as
that down.
Make it as a separate bullet point that the select board can accept it or not accept it.
I prefer 6 months.
Well, there's a
I
lot
think
to
that-
accomplish in a year, I must say, and it does give everybody a little flexibility. There
Yeah.
is staff recruitment to go on.
What
And
happened?
we're not asking them particularly to find new board members, but we are saying that certain things will fall in place at the end of 1 year.
What happens if no new board members come on in that 1 year?
Well, actually, I think we should add to say that our hope would be, or our recommendation is that at least 2 new board members are found within this time as well.
What about if one board member comes on next week, and then they don't make any effort to get another one for 51 more weeks? You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out how it is that we can make this process happen
I think it's a two-step process. I mean,
collectively.
If you think, you have a very strong opinion about what is happening now,
Yes.
and about what it takes to change it. I'm not sure I'm as pessimistic as you are about that. And I think with that in mind, I think I would like to leave latitude. If we want to say this will be revisited in a year's time from the board in terms of how they're doing, I think we could probably squeeze that in under one of our bullets, this topic. But I think we need to give some latitude for these guys to get their act together on these issues. I don't think it's a snap in the wind to get new people. I don't think it's easy to get this retroactive thing going. I think implying it or having it start after a year, I think that's a good, reasonable way of allowing a shift from what is to something new. Now, let me throw the real cannonball out at you. We have a member of the person here who can step forward and say, what's the impediment here?
But we weren't going to take any.
We're not taking any public comments.
Well,
All right.
that comes back to one of my strong feelings about the fact that a lot of the things we've been talking about, I think we need feedback. I don't think we need a debate, but I think we need feedback from the entity that we're asking to do it as to know what are they going to do? How are they going to propose to go at it? And we've ruled that out. We've lost that meeting somewhere along the line.
Well, I don't think we've totally lost it, honestly, and I agree with you. I think that the decision was to really submit this to the select board and also at the same time MCCI, and to discuss, since we don't know what the select board is going to adopt, wait for that to come forward and then discuss how things will be implemented and, you know.
Okay, I think it's one thing for us to say they should do this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is they have to run the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether they can or not. I know from my first early experiences here on this committee and seeing this station come and go and up and down and what happened, why it even began to get into this problem, has begun to happen again. And it didn't go away in a minute. It happened because they had good people starting to volunteer. It was a gung-ho operation for a long while. And people have changed. It's moved around, and they haven't solved all the problems, even when they did early on. We haven't solved the scad of people pouring in the door to volunteer. We've changed some personnel,
Yeah,
and
Yeah. Job descriptions have changed, new
and
positions
that's
have come.
normal for an operation. So I think you have to understand that when you start talking about implementing these things. We can say this is gonna happen now, but the reality is, this isn't gonna happen now. It's gonna happen over time.
So, how do
So
we?
I think that's why we need to think from that point of view. If we want to encourage this operation to occur to the limits that we want, we can set some timelines, but let's make them real. Let's allow time to take place. If we want to say, okay, in a year this is going to happen, fine, let's still say that, okay? But we're talking from no knowledge about what it takes to get a directorship. At least I have no experience in creating directorships. I do know what I would like to see in directorships on people, on these various boards, or what I'd like to have people know how to do. But I've never tried to recruit it here or anywhere else.
And these, of course, are our recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and they can accept or not accept, right?
Absolutely.
Presumably, they have a line item veto if they choose some parts of our recommendations and not others. So that might be just in order to frame how much deliberation we need to give to this. Let's give them some options in bullet points. Our best option they can select or they can choose or not choose.
So John, you're suggesting a year and
Yep.
then the retroactive,
Yes.
and you think that's a fair amount of time?
I think it is. I may be totally wrong, but I
And
think
does
it is.
that may change over, that may cause most of the board to change over within a year.
I don't know that it's most of the
No, I don't
board.
think
No, not
I mean,
most.
I think we're talking about.
Not
four
all of them have
people.
been around for 6.
Most of them.
Most of them have been around for 6.
I think two
So-
particular people have been around for more than
Forever,
6,
yeah.
but I don't think 2 others. I think one person is very new,
Yeah, she's new this year, or last year.
and, yeah.
Who's been around the longest?
I'm not sure, Mick or Mike, either or both,
Mick is the oldest.
by a lot of time or a little?
14 years
Yeah, for a long
by his
time.
own admission.
Yeah. And whether he was head honcho or not, he wasn't head honcho all that time, but he was.
He and Ann Harding took terms.
Ann was, Ann was a big mover.
Yeah.
Ann Harding was a key issue.
So the suggestion, John, is to recruit 2 new ones within a year? And that's when the retroactive kicks in, is after the first
Okay, I
year?
can buy into that. I'll buy into that.
Okay.
All right.
So there would be 2 people recruited in 1 year. And the
From
retro,
the time of this contract signing.
right, which is January.
Okay, all right,
One assumes that it will be January.
okay.
2 new board of directors. 2 new board of directors in 1 year and.
Minimum,
and-
I would say a minimum of 2. I mean, let's just put the qualifier in there, minimum of 2.
Okay.
Which means
a
that if they
minimum
want
of
to, they
2
could get 3, 4,
I
5.
know, but I'm hearing your pessimism.
Well,
Red
you
flag.
know, I'm doing my job, John.
So we want 2, a minimum of 2 new board of directors within the timeframe of 1 year, and within that same year, after the first year of contract is finished, then the retroactive.
Term limits kick
Term
in.
limits.
Term
Apply.
limits kick in.
And are we going, and so say that they were unable to get 2 new people within this 1 year, they got some great people, they didn't stay, whatever. Do the term limits still become retroactive?
Yes.
I would
After that
guess
year.
at that point we'd be forced to do something of that ilk. Problem is, we could end up with 1 director, if you think about it.
Yeah, I think then we call in, fire department or Coast Guard or
I
National
think
Guard or
John's point
something.
earlier about.
You know, it doesn't,
we'd
as
have
you
to
say,
monitor the situation.
it doesn't make null the contract, it's just, it's a violation of the contract. It
Yeah.
doesn't immediately terminate the contract.
Now, they have said that they are looking for new members with different skills. I mean, they've come to us and said that, so
Veronica
I think that's a
mentioned that
plus.
meeting. Yep,
And I
absolutely.
think they realize that they need it. I mean,
Yep.
they're not,
Well, the board is just too small, I mean, that's, okay, so we're in agreement with that, because I'd love to get through all of these little bullets and,
yep.
so we've taken the first bullet from Mark's, then the MCI board, term limits, blah, blah, blah,
We're done with that.
and that's the second one. And then this new one, I think, should be the third.
About the presidency.
About that there needs to be, within the first year after the signing of the contract, there needs to be a minimum of 2 new board of directors recruited,
Correct.
and at that time, at the end of the first year, the retroactive term limits come into
Correct.
play. So I think that should be the addendum 3.
Okay.
Do you have that, Jason?
Yeah, I believe so.
Good, okay.
And then you're talking about the
Then the presidency.
presidency.
And we said, I don't know what, so, yeah, so, a newish person could come in, do a 3-year term, and still have another 3-year term for their directorship of the, in terms of the board, but do we
I would
want,
suggest that the presidency have one 3-year limit.
Okay.
One 3-year term.
and that's it?
Well, and then, which means that somebody else will come in for the next 3 years, which means that the first person could go back for another term after the second person.
As
did
a
3
director,
years.
you mean?
But
Would they
basically,
automatic default to director?
pardon me?
The president default to a directorship?
Well, sure, they're
In other
still,
words,
they
they
can
bounce out of
still,
the presidency and then
They
become a
become-
director?
sure, well, they're still,
Kind of like the
they are
select board
directors.
does, they rotate and they, they're chair and then they're selectman, boom, boom.
Yeah,
and then
because the
they're chair.
president's still a board member.
Right,
I guess my question is, if the reason for all of this rotation and shifting around is to prevent,
Calcification.
calcification, right, good term. Then does that help us if we rotate the calcified stone to another location?
Well, I think it does a couple of things. I think, first of all, what it does is it keeps some fresh stuff coming in. It also gives other people an opportunity to assume the leadership position, right?
Okay, I guess my problem with that is there are different skills located here. Leadership is not necessarily the same skill that you want as a director. That's the wiffle board you're playing with.
Yeah, that's hard though, I mean.
I know, I realize that, but I mean, I think you have to be careful about getting these absolutes. That's what's bothering me here.
I think, well, yeah, I think I think everybody on the board of directors should have a shot at being the president of the board of directors if they want. I don't know that everybody, I mean, in the select board, everybody has to take a turn, that's my understanding. Okay.
No,
No, they can pass.
they just rotate.
They
Okay.
just did this year.
But, so, I mean, that is an option, that a person can take a pass, but can the same board of director have more than one term as president, which would be, if we're doing a 3-year term for the president?
Consecutive terms, you mean?
Well, they'd have to be consecutive because they've only got 2 terms to serve as director, so they'd have to do 2 consecutive
see what
terms.
you're saying,
So
sure.
all of their time as president would be their time on the board.
Yeah.
At the end, so do we,
You wipe them out at that point. Is that what you want?
no, I think that it could be 1 term and then it needs to rotate to somebody else who wants the position and who will be effective in it.
Well, once you get a good,
I would say with a
President.
1-year absence.
yeah, maybe a win.
A 1-year absence, and then but then their term, if they come in and, yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe we make the presidency a shorter term, so you can,
I don't know that we've stated the presidency has to be a 3-year term.
No,
We
it-
just put a limit on it.
you know, I
As
think
written.
that
We
yeah, I
suggested the
think that
one
we
3-year
voted
term
on this
because
as a
the
3-year
term
term.
of
We'll have a-
office is a 3-year term.
Okay,
So that's why we came up with the 3-year thing for the presidency.
all right. That's already in place somewhere?
Well, because because we're recommending 2 3-year terms as term limits.
Mhm.
So rather than make the term for the presidency different than the term for everybody else,
Oh, okay.
we just, to be consistent, we said that's 3 years as well.
Yeah, I mean, we also talked about, again, in terms of the select board, they take a 1-year stint. It seems to me that you're just kind of figuring it out at the end of 1 year, and maybe at the end of 2 years, you're really getting good at it.
I mean, at least you know what's required or expected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was my whole point about if you get somebody who's really a good leader, that the president or leader of the group, you want to keep them. And it seems to me foolish to dump them if you don't have reason to dump them.
But again, as it proves itself out,
I know,
You
that's
know.
the risk, you talk about the risk.
Yeah.
Which way do you play it?
yep,
Well, let's say, for
No
example,
guarantee.
let's say, for example, somebody comes on board and they're a newbie, right? They serve 3 years, and your comment about the cream rises to the top becomes obvious that that particular person should serve as the president for the next 3 years. But then again, it depends because people are coming on at different times, so their terms are gonna end at different times. So there's a lot of leeway, basically. But if that person starts serving as presidency in the beginning of their second 3-year term, then at the end of their 3-year presidency, they take a year off, and they can come back.
For the sake of survival.
So we're not asking them, we're not saying to stay away for 3 years, we're saying be off for 1 year.
For the sake of getting this done, why don't we leave it the way it's printed and go forward?
and just say it's a 3-year term limit,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay?
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about the any time between,
Right, we've taken that out.
okay?
Also, this MCCI board shall consist of 5 members, should go up as we're talking about board formation and stuff like that. So this comes 4, maybe, and the presidency becomes 5, something like that.
Say that again.
That the next point that we're going to be talking about is that the board consists of 5 people. We have been talking about it, actually.
Correct.
So that should go up with the board formation, one, as part of 1, 2, 3. So I'm suggesting that that be
Sure,
4, and the presidency should be 5.
sure, take the note out.
Yeah, go ahead. Fair enough.
Okay. And the next one, MCTV hours shall be posted public to include at least one evening
Yep.
period. Posted public retail hours must be staffed, suggested. So The italics suggest Thursday for evening hours to coincide with third Thursday.
Well, third Thursday is once a month,
Yep.
But it's not all year long.
and it's not all year long.
It's a good portion of the year, though. Like 7, 8
So,
months.
yeah, it's half or more.
What's the, you know, like traditionally downtown retailers have been open on a Friday night. That's been going on for
Yeah.
centuries.
Yeah.
What's the downtown evening? Is it still a Friday night that most
Thursday,
people?
Friday, or Saturday, but a Saturday might, I mean, a Friday might be more.
So Friday
people are
night people
more
stay
off.
open till 8 or 9 o'clock?
Why do we
Yeah.
say which day? Why don't we let them pick it?
Well, obviously we can, but I think that there's,
They may want to experiment. They may find that Friday is better than Thursday, or Saturday is better than either one, or
and
why? We
availability.
want one the point was, we want a consistent evening.
This is true.
That is what we want.
My opinion, though, if I might just put in a personal aside, is that it should be a night when there's going to be some activity and when MC TV can be showcased.
Right.
So being part of Third Thursday and having an open house or a film that somebody's just done, you know, kind of running during that time, just seems to be get a bigger bang for your buck. So that's my only point.
Do we want,
For
I mean,
Thursday or
they may
Friday.
be smart and think that's a good idea too and try it. On the other hand, that may not work for them.
Mhm.
Should we leave them the latitude of picking another day?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to put that specifically in the contract that
Probably
day?
not, but I really like it.
Wow.
Well,
I think
yeah, I mean,
Thursday's
the other thing is that since third Thursday only happens, what, 7 or 8
half the year. a little
7
more
or
than
8
half,
months
yeah.
out of the year at the most, that, you know, if you wanted to stipulate an evening, stipulate Friday evening, and then when third Thursday comes around, you know,
Could switch it.
would behoove them to be there as well.
Mhm.
once
Dawn,
a
I
month
think,
For a second evening.
was the
you know.
volunteer who kept the studio open on Fridays. I think that was his night initially, and he's always said that there was somebody in, or said that, you know,
Well,
yeah.
I think Friday night's probably the busiest night, you know, in town.
So I'm gonna take out the italics and just leave it
Take out
at
the what?
the italics. And
Suggested
the
Thursday.
italics phrase, suggested Thursday, blah, blah, blah. And that it will end, that sentence will end with hours must be staffed.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and the next one?
When you say mimic form constitute the annual report, what are you saying, in fact?
Meaning the-
The format should be identical, and therefore, when they get to the final report, they'll give us 3 copies of the annual reports, or rather the,
An integrated copy. of-
integrated.
Right.
Okay.
Would
With all of
Basically-
the information required for an annual.
Okay, and I would assume an annual report would have some statement of what they've succeeded in doing over the year.
Mhm.
Okay, and then they may have quarterly reports that have good, bad things, but I would like a little bit more on that annual report. I would think there should be a summary of the year's
Correct.
work.
Mhm. A
One-
cumulative
One flow
summary,
sheet,
yeah.
yeah, cumulative sheet of
Yes.
Yeah.
some sort. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that comes out of that, or does it? I mean, maybe, to me, reading that didn't. They could just take the quarterly reports, hand them all stapled together to us, and that was it, from what you've got here.
So we want a little bit
Well,
more
it's not-
description?
It's not gonna be 4 quarterly reports stapled together.
How would you know from this?
It's go-
Annual
Well-
report should be a cumulative summary of the
It's
entire year.
absolutely a cumulative summary. So for example, if you spend X amount of hours on select board meetings in this quarter, it might be a little bit different in each quarter, but totally you would say, okay, here's the total number of hours spent airing select board minutes.
So at the end of the year, it'll be the summary of all of these quarters.
Correct, so, you know, you might say 3 per quarter, and then in the annual reporting, I say, well, it turned out to be 14 hours over the year.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be like a grand total. And hours is just one example of how that would be summarized. You know,
So is that
I mean, it might
sufficient
be,
to-
you know, this quarter, you know, we produced so many hours of local content by so many producers working so many hours on editing. And that might vary from quarter to quarter, but at least you can track it by quarter, and then at the annual report, you basically have a summary that totals that up.
So I'm not sure, what are you suggesting? Are you saying that the annual report it becomes the cumulative summary is good, or you're
It becomes like a
disputing?
grand total,
Right, and so you're
a
concurring with
summarized
this?
grand total.
So you're concurring that the annual report should be a cumulative summary of all of the information in each quarter?
In the quarterly, and then some. So there might be things that you would put in the annual report
To reflect the year accurately, to reflect,
that might not appear in any quarterly report.
okay,
Who knows?
yeah.
That summary might
Projections for
also
the
do,
future, game plan for the
yeah,
coming
projections
year.
for the following year, you know, what
Mhm,
worked
mhm.
well, what didn't work.
That
Yeah,
would be my hope you do that.
Some goals.
Is that
I
clearly
mean, it's
stated here?
you know, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, you know, what goes into it, what would go into it.
You never assume things are obvious.
Well,
So,
I'm
in
trying to be
addition,
optimistic, John.
in addition to it being a cumulative summary to reflect the entire year, it could have information about the successes and the things that were less than successful, also several goals for the coming year. Is
Now,
that
one would
kind
hope
of
they'd
what-
start the year with some goals, what they wanted to achieve, and then how they, I mean, at the end of the one year, they would say, okay, this is what happened, this is what's
Mhm.
done, these are the things we think we need to work on and want to achieve.
Mhm.
Then we could track that into the next year.
One of
They
the
might be
things-
saying
Oh,
quarterly
I'm sorry.
that we've got this and this part done, but at the end of the year, they could say, yes, we achieved
did.
these items
Mhm.
and need to work on this.
Mhm.
I think that gives a fair input.
And so how are we gonna say that in the bullet point?
Well, one of the things that we could request is that they develop a format for the quarterly reports. What would they include in a quarterly report? What would they include in an annual report? So that we get the template, we get the format, and that way we can work with them to make additions, corrections, whatever.
I think the idea of a format is a good one in terms of, we want the numbers.
Right.
I mean, I think we've spelled that elsewhere here in terms of changes in staffing and so on and what their finances are. We haven't
Well,
said
the
much
financial,
about
the
them,
quarterly financials are already requested.
and that comes along in the summary. That would quarterly summary, I would guess.
But it seems to me that one of the things that needs to be developed, if it doesn't already exist, would be what's the format for the quarterly, what goes into a quarterly report, what goes into an annual report, so that we can take a look at that and make suggestions about it one way or the other. Maybe it'll be fine and it's acceptable. We said we'd like you to add this, we don't see the importance of that, you can take that out, I don't, you know.
So it would come about with the presentation of the reports, what we want, what we don't want, what we like, how it reads. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that quarterly reports are gonna be required, and annual report's gonna be required. We need to have some idea of what that looks like now and what we'd like it to look like, if there's any disparity.
I'm not sure I'm with you.
You don't understand what I'm
I'm
saying?
not sure, yeah.
Okay, let me try it again. The quarterly reports are gonna contain certain information
Mhm.
that I'm sure they already do. I would like at some point to see what that outline is. I don't wanna see the detail. I just wanna see the format. What's gonna go into the quarterly report?
Okay.
And then I'd also wanna see the format, or to say it another way, what's gonna go into the annual report. Again, as kind of an outline. We're gonna include financials, we're gonna include hours of this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I don't, you know.
So, but,
I don't think we should, I don't think the CAC needs to design the report, but I'd like to see how the report is designed, or what is the design of the report, so that we can take a look at that and determine whether or not we like it, we don't like it, we like this, we don't like that, you know what I mean? So that we can make recommendations what we think would be,
Are you suggesting, though, that we put that into a bullet point, or are you suggesting that that's gonna kind of happen as we receive the first report?
I would think that would be part of the process, that would happen. I don't see that.
Okay, let's go with that.
Right.
We're requiring a quarterly and an annual report.
And so we'll see, and we'll,
Yeah,
one from column A, two from column
Sure,
B. Okay,
sure.
great. Okay, so we have, the.
it would be a
so
work in progress.
so we can move from the quarterly reports. And the next one is one taken out, because
Right.
we've changed the
31.
placement. So we're at the MCTV, have more original programming.
Yep, that's,
So we're almost to the end of our agenda, but not quite.
So this last bullet point we're at, right?
So the last bullet point we are at, MCTV have more original local programming. The discussion was how to implement that change, centered on two possibilities. And I just noted the two possibilities because I think while we all concurred that we wanted to see more local programming, how that was to be done.
we're not gonna put this in a contract, they have to do this, if you write it in.
That we want more
The
local
main
programming.
thing is we want more local programming. Correct?
That
That's what
is the
you're
main
gonna put on it. Maybe you wanna say, looking for an amount. I know Jeff was looking for an amount and a number. He was suggesting this percentage budget stuff that he's got in here now, what you've got here. Those are his ideas originally, I think. Or pay a stipend, like they do for the newspaper thing.
Right, exactly.
That's
I mean, I
where
think
that
if we,
came from. But the point is, there are multiple ways of increasing your local input. From up to pushing your, what is it, that, the woman that was supposed to run around to get people going.
Outreach coordinator.
Outreach coordinator, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know what happened to her, but anyway. That would be one thing I would think she could do. But also, we have, what I was talking, the technical side of it that I was talking about. And I don't think we need that in the contract. I think we just need to stipulate that we want this to improve. And again, we might put a timeline on this one.
on the local programming.
Yeah.
So a timeline, but not a quantity or a point of measurement.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to work out how they're gonna get to it. I don't think you can just push a button and say they're gonna go to 100%.
No, I think that would be totally unwise, but for me,
I think there should
we
be a
have to
goal
put a
that we
point of
can.
measurement.
that-
And
that
I
we
think it
can-
should be a reasonable point of measurement, but some way that, when is more, when is more enough, when is more too little.
And that will fluctuate, I would guess. Almost seasonally. Okay,
I would
mean,
think so, definitely.
What I see is, let's say, a certain percentage would be the goal.
I mean, I can say, gee, I think they ought to have 75%, but I don't know
No.
really things about what these guys take to do anything, frankly. I mean, it sounds like, just go out and snap pictures, but unfortunately, that's not the way it goes.
Yeah, I think,
And so, for me to say that they should have a 50% increase or a 25% increase, I don't know, is that real? I don't know. Is that doable? I don't know. What do other people do?
Well,
That's what it comes down to my suggestion about investigating how other stations, other places get their inputs. Other people manage to do it. Other stations do it. How do they do it is what I would say. That's why I would put in that they have a period of time to investigate these and implement that. That would be my
to
feeling
investigate
about
with other.
how they can increase it 10, 15%
Mhm.
in the first year. Maybe 50% in the second year. But they've got to document how they did it. What steps have they taken? What are they gonna do to make this happen?
what I'm thinking, John, is let's say we set a goal as an arbitrary number. This is not carved in stone by any stretch. But let's say we set an arbitrary goal of 30%. Then we see over time, like we would with the development of these reports that we just got done talking about, how it is that progresses. Because you have to be able to, you have to set something so that you can have something to bounce it off of. And then you see how it goes toward reaching that goal. Maybe you find out that it exceeds 30% very quickly, and then maybe you set another goal. Well, maybe we did set it high enough. Or you set it at 30% and you go, well, you know, we've been working our tail off for the last year and a half. We're pleased with what's going on, and we've only gotten to 24%. Well, maybe that's a realistic figure then. But to start out with no goal, with no stated goal, without any percentage on it, you don't have anything to bat against. It's just, it's open-ended. So all I'm suggesting is that we set a goal with the understanding that we're gonna work toward that goal to see how feasible that goal is. But unless you have the goal, you don't have any way to measure the feasibility one way or the other.
How about saying that the CAC will work with the MCTV to establish goals goals to be achieved within a year?
I think that's a nice way to put it. Seriously. I mean, I think that's realistic.
Yeah, I
Is that-
think the percentage, I mean, I'd like to see a point of measurement, but I think the percentage is very difficult, and I would be inclined to start way lower than 30%. So to work with and
Like I
to
said, I just
see
threw
what
that
it
out there.
includes.
Like
is
I
a
don't-
big thing.
And
Yeah,
I think we could.
I would say no more than 10%, because that's a lot of programming. But anyway, we're not doing a
I think
percentage.
it
What you said
depends
that,
on how you do it, I guess is the question. I'm not familiar enough with it to say how you have to do it.
so what you said, John, is that the CAC will work with the MCTV toward more local programming.
Within a year.
Which might include the establishment of stipend. Which could include
Go ahead, Lisa.
the use of stipends.
I'm fine, right in the middle of this meeting. We're serving supper at our meeting tonight.
So I think that probably those
Sehr gut.
goals would
Very
be
good.
stated
Talk to you
in
later.
that quarterly report, like stating what
What's
is now,
transpired.
what is now the amount of local programming, and then from there, you'll build it from there. Whatever
then-
that number is, obviously, you're just gonna try to improve it from there, so it's up there in a fact, and then also at the end of the like the summary for the year, there should be some projections of what do we hope to do.
Right. Because
Next year.
you also get into the issue then, John, of new programming versus local programming that is run more than once.
Yeah.
Because some of it deserves to be run more than once.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you have to take that into account as
Yeah.
well.
Right, the wording is not
So it's hard to
new,
quantify.
it's about original local.
So we don't want, you're gonna drop out the method here, dedicate a percentage of the budget?
Yeah,
Okay.
we could include that, though, in the discussion points, so
Yes.
that the select board has some knowledge of what the discussion was.
Right.
I mean, original programming, I guess, is local programming, right?
Original local program.
Original is local.
Only if you say
Original
original
and-
local.
I mean,
I mean-
I assume that if we're talking about programming produced at, well, not necessarily.
Yeah, somebody could shoot something down in Northampton.
Right.
Somebody
It
could
could be
shoot
local.
something from their vacation. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't care either.
By local
We
producers.
want somebody to do it, some local people to
I
do it.
think local
That's the
events
whole
or,
point.
and/or by local people.
Right.
Original
They
by local producers?
can be watching the ping pong show.
Original programming would basically be defined by programming produced by local residents and/or about a local event. So somebody might come from somewhere else and decide to film a local event and then hand it over to somebody to say, here, air this on your, I don't know if that happens very much, that might be totally unrealistic, but.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah, original or local, sure.
So
Sounds good.
that first line on this bullet point could read, MCTV have more original local programming. And no, could have more
Original
original
slash-
programming by local producers. Is that what we're saying?
What is it? What's it, can I?
Local producers, what she was adding in there.
Have
Local
more
producers.
original local programming
Period.
by, excuse me, have more original programming by local producers.
Right.
Yeah, why don't you start with that?
Yeah, but we also have to include the fact that local programming needs to include local events.
But they were saying not necessarily.
Yeah, but
Something in
I-
Northampton, ping
Well-
pong game.
Well, here's what I'm saying. Just because I'm a local resident and I'm on vacation in Las Vegas, you know, if that's all the stuff that turns out to be, and the local events are neglected, basically what I'm saying is that we need to state it in a way that local events are not neglected.
Well, let
I
us
was
use
fine.
our
So we
oversight
not only wanna have stuff done by
responsibility to
local
encourage
producers,
them.
but we also wanna
What's that?
make sure that
Let us
local
use our
events are
oversight
covered.
responsibility to
Yeah,
encourage them.
I think that, I don't think we need to spell it out quite that much.
Okay.
It could be that way, Gary, but I would like to be optimistic that it won't be.
So we're okay with MCTV have more original programming by local producers?
Yep.
We're not
I
gonna
don't think
define the
that,
local.
that doesn't cover it for me. Because it does, because when we talk about local programming, a lot of what we've talked about are local events. The soapbox derby, block party, pumpkin fest,
Yeah.
Third Thursdays, whatever events going on at the Great Falls Discovery Center, the coffee house. So we're not just talking about programming done by a local producer, because that doesn't imply that they're gonna do a local event. And really, since
How do you want
public
to phrase it
access
so it
is to
does both?
showcase Montague,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that it includes wording about local events. That's why I'm
Could you
saying
read it
that.
again, Eileen? What did you say?
MCTV shall have more original programming by local producers.
And
Really
about
doesn't
local
specify.
With a
events.
focus on
Or and about,
Local
and,
events.
events.
and about
Bingo.
local events, or with a focus on local events.
Yep,
With a
good.
focus on local events.
There you go.
Yeah, and if it's, somebody goes on a trip and they shoot a video and they're from here, that's great too.
Sure.
You know,
Share
but
my
it's
summer
important
vacation.
to.
Show and tell.
Right, but it's important to know what locally produced, we need to know what locally produced hours are by this station
Right.
as opposed to stuff filler, that's what we used to call it,
Right.
filler
Still is.
from other places. But filler is good.
Phil is
There's
good.
nothing
It's
wrong
still
with filler because that
A lot
stuff
of
is,
stations show
keeps you
Democracy
going.
Now, a lot of stations show the David Pac-Man
Yeah.
show.
You
But it
need,
would
you
be-
need that stuff
Sure.
because there's a lot of hours. filled.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're at the last bullet, and then we have a little discussion on the discussion, or are we good with the discussion?
What's the last bullet? We just finished the last
We
bullet.
just finished the last bullet.
I'm
There's a
done.
discussion bullet?
The
That one?
discussion.
Every board
How'd
go?
that get in there?
I don't have the language for that last bullet, but you have it, Eileen, right? So,
I do. Do
okay.
you want me to read it to you?
If you want it in the minutes, does it want it?
Yes,
to be-
put it in
Yes,
the-
yes. MCTV have more original local, original,
Wait, start over again. Make it a sentence.
well, it's a bullet, so it doesn't start with,
Okay.
could we please? It just starts, MCTV have more
To
original
have.
Shall
To have, yeah,
To
to
have.
have.
programming, original programming by local producers with a focus on local events. And
Excellent.
history? Could we do history too? Local events and history.
Yeah,
And history.
yeah,
History.
I like that.
And history?
And history, because event coverage is like, oh, something's happening at the Shea, but we need to encourage people to tell stories of, Polish people in town, or this mill or that mill.
That would be a local event.
Or the history of the
No.
the Turner
It,
Falls
it
Stand.
becomes a local event, but it's really more like historical, like document, it's really like a
Becomes part of-
documentary.
We should
Becomes
add
part of
add
education.
sculpture shows though, too.
Sculpture show?
Don Clegg did a wonderful
It
thing on one
becomes,
of
it
yeah.
becomes the
Okay.
education part of PEG.
Right.
Okay. So history or no history?
Oh,
Local
put in
events.
history, that's.
I think the more, the merrier. in this
Okay.
History can
portion.
be expanded in multiple ways, so just throw it in. Good.
With a focus on local
Local
events
events and
and
history.
history. And history.
Great,
Did you get
okay.
Historical,
Mr.
yeah.
Brewer?
Local
I did.
historical. Ooh.
That's why I'm watching the dam event as we speak.
Which again, that?
The event at the Discovery Center
Oh, yeah,
about the,
the dam?
Which dam are we blowing up now?
this is the Charles Falls Dam.
It's going?
A history event that was
Oh, yeah.
filmed by MCTV.
Yeah.
What was it about? Immigrants?
Here you are, right in the foreground.
Greg's,
It's about the immigrants?
No, about the
No.
dam.
Oh, about the
The Turner's
dam, I
Dam.
watched that, yeah, Ed Gregory did that.
and Greg,
last week.
right.
Okay.
It was a great
So
program.
we've-
Okay, now, we down
So
to.
we've
No,
done-
but I'm watching it now.
We've done the review summary
Am I
to
facing there
the
somewhere?
Board
Yes, it is.
of
Is it back
Selectmen,
Where am I?
and discussion of contract recommendations, blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
right there.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
much.
know.
Oh, I see,
So,
yeah.
Now
and
you
then-
have- What's
then
this next one?
I think I'm
This,
wearing the same shirt I have
the
on
next
now.
one is consider a request from a community member for time to speak with the CAC.
What's that all about?
I received an email from a community member who wants time to speak before the CAC.
Somebody do we all know this individual?
Yeah, I mean, it's a community member. So, I guess my question really to everybody is, we did, within the structure of this review, we had time for public opinion.
Hmm?
You know, a number of people took part in that. And this particular community member did have time at that public opinion. So my concern is if we open it, if we allow time at a regular meeting, for one person, we would have to open a meeting for any kind of, any public
I think
opinion,
the
again.
public, I
Well,
think
if we
the
had it
public
in our
comment period
agenda,
is over.
public comment,
Could they
5
submit,
minutes.
submit something in
I
this
could
form?
ask,
Rather
submit in
than,
writing to the board?
maybe. Rather than,
or what, how much time are they asking for? I mean, what, is it about, do you know what it's about?
I'm sure it's about everything from
We
the start
already,
to the
but we
finish.
already pretty much said that we're done with that. You know what I mean? We even went on the record as saying that today. I don't see why we can open it back up.
Well, I'm not sure why, are we opening it up? I mean, is this somebody coming in just to talk in general about things that affect MCTV? Or is this somebody coming in proposing a change in something? Or is this something talking about the cloud bank? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Not the cloud bank, I think that the whole thing of this review. That would be my guess. I don't have specifics, I have a request.
Do we have a name?
I do have a name, but it's a community member, and again, as we've been discussing these points, it's kind of like, how does it, you know, how do you go forward with this? And if we open it up, and, I mean, if we open it up for one person, then we really do have to open it up for
My
a
point
whole
is there
nother.
discussion relative to what we're talking about? Is that what it's all about or not, or is it a totally different issue?
No, it's not a totally
Okay,
different
so
issue,
then
it's about the
I would
review.
concur with you, I don't think it's appropriate.
We had public.
Although
input.
clearly the other side of it is, I hate to say no to anybody, but
Right.
to open it up again, I just think that.
at this point,
Then write it up, put it in writing.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a no on that?
Yeah, I would think so, because we're trying to close this thing up, and if we keep opening it up,
That's right.
which is what you brought,
Exactly.
there's no end in
Yeah.
sight.
That's
Yeah.
right,
So is that unanimous?
yes.
Yeah.
Aye, yes. All around the table, unanimous, yes. Do you want me to make a formal motion on that?
Sure.
I move that, as we've stated in the past, that the public comment period is closed and has been since the June 25th meeting.
Okay, so we've gotten the draft
Do I have a
summary
second?
down. Oh, excuse me.
Second.
Any discussion? All
No
in favor?
discussion, all vote is aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so we've gotten the summary down, and I think with Jason's good help, we'll get it to look like we want it to look. We did not go over the obligation scorecard. And I do need help on that.
Yeah, I think we need to do that.
Yeah,
Not today,
not today.
but we
And-
definitely need to do that.
so
Next
that's
Wednesday
something
is
we need to think
Comcast?
about.
Next Wednesday is Comcast meeting.
Okay, what's that gonna, what are we into on that?
Well, we're reestablishing contact with Comcast begin the finalization process on the contract with Comcast,
Who is we?
the CAC.
Is a lawyer gonna be there?
No,
Okay.
We have the,
And what, since I was not around for the first go-round with these people, is there information I should be reading ahead of that?
probably, which I can get to you.
Okay, I would hope at least there's a summary of why we didn't like what they had offered, somewhere.
Yeah, there was basically, the contract renewal, the renewal of the contract last August. Actually in 2013, so a year ago, August,
Mhm.
was denied by the Board of Selectmen at the request of the CAC on advice from the CAC Council.
Okay, so
The
there's some
CAC
written
attorney.
statement of what that council
There
said.
was a letter of denial outlined, very specific. It covers, I think, 21
20-something.
21 different points, 22. It's either 21 or 22
Yeah.
points
yep,
that are very clearly defined by the CAC's council on the issue.
and there's also the RFP, I mean, from the beginning.
Right. So there's a ton of information, but I think that the letter of denial with the 21 point, I think it's 21 points,
Mhm.
should be sufficient without overwhelming you about all the other stuff.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, so there's no more recommended reading that I should do before that meeting?
I'll send out to both of you guys that 21 point letter.
And you said there was 2 meetings? Was this-
Well, we were trying to schedule 2, we were able to schedule 1 for next Wednesday.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you've got it scheduled, haven't you?
Pardon me?
It's on for next Wednesday.
It is on for next Wednesday,
Did you say, you said Wednesday?
Wednesday,
Wednesday
October
the
the
8th.
8th.
Okay.
And Eileen's gonna be
Time?
posting that agenda, because I already asked her to do that. So she's gonna be
I'm gonna
posting.
be sending it to you.
Send it to me, yeah, okay.
Time?
5 to 7, right?
4 to 6.
4 to 6?
I think 4 to 6. I will confirm that, though.
Okay,
I forget what I said back to Aaron Saunders, the Comcast show.
Okay.
Either 4 to 6 or 5 to 7.
and you have a room.
Haven't done that yet.
Okay, now we have, one thing that was, I don't see us having talked about it, how we establish contact with the schools.
That was in the discussion point about liaison and things like that.
Did we do that?
We didn't get real specific
Somehow
last,
that flew by me.
it is in the discussion points. John R. suggests we encourage getting school liaison person rather than MCCI, MCTV board member.
Okay, so that's what you're saying we have to come back to, is that correct? We have to come back to that issue, or not?
No, I'm not sure what,
I think it's
What I
also
said and
mentioned
what
in
you said.
Well,
the.
what I'm getting at is,
In the, what's that other list of things?
the obligations
I
scorecard?
think it's also mentioned in the obligations.
yes, it is, but we didn't discuss that at all in any way in terms of obligations. And Gary, I think, was accurate in saying that it was kind of disheartening to see that a school board member was not inclined to help at all in this issue. When we said there was not good liaison with the school
Yeah, you
system.
brought that up at the June 25th meeting, John.
More than once.
Yeah,
And, you know,
rightfully so.
it's ironic to me, because I think that we could have, if they have a video club or a TV, I don't know what they call these days in schools, but they do this kind of stuff,
Technology club, maybe.
whatever it
something
is,
like
they
that.
may have things that they might even want to have on the studio over here. They might want to get involved. And to me, if you have a community where young people going to school locally or not locally, who have an access to a TV station
Yes,
outside, that's an incentive. It
absolutely.
should not be looked at as a negative, and I don't know why we can't. So my suggestion from my point of view, I will certainly talk to Mr. Sullivan on this point. I have no qualms, I get along very well with him.
Yeah, I agree.
And, but I think it's incredible that a school committee member would talk the way he did to us. I just can't conceive of anything so
Yes.
behind the 8 ball in terms of how to get kids to do things.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's like having the sculpture park and the lack of community excitement about that. That just boggles my mind.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
To claim that there was some sort of a conflict is
So,
mesmerizing.
do you,
That's the conflict, you know.
Do you want to expand on that discussion point where you suggest we encourage getting school liaison?
And liaison can be pretty broad.
Mhm.
They can, as far as I'm concerned, you can have a bunch of kids doing it from the school. You can do it
Mhm.
from a teacher, what the teachers tend to be feeling stressed.
Mhm.
If it was a paid thing from the school board side, it might be interesting. You might get more people involved, but I doubt if they have any money to do that. Stipend for some teaching staff to do that. That implies more than anybody really probably wants to do. But I would think we might first investigate whether any of the kids really want to get involved. If they get involved there, they might get involved here,
Mhm.
which is a natural way of getting.
Just as a point of information, John, Greenfield School System at the high school,
Mhm.
I think it's at the high school, has a video production class
Mhm.
that's taught by somebody that I know.
Mhm.
And literally, they're either writing a script, or they're doing an interview, or they're generating something.
Mhm.
So it's a very active class.
Mhm.
It's pretty much in demand.
Mhm.
I think he's teaching it at two different, I think there's at least one, if not two sections. And
Is
there's like 20-some kids in each one.
And is this backed by GCTV?
No, it's backed by the high school.
Okay, so it
By
isn't
the-
connected to their
By the
television
school
station?
district.
Yes, you're saying that somebody who works at GCTV is providing this. Did you not say that?
They do some stuff at GCTV, that's correct, but they're not an employee of GCTV.
Oh, I see, okay.
It doesn't have to be, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's just something you should explore.
Mhm.
I mean,
Our high school, the elementary school, and the tech school.
you know, young people, if you want this stuff to grow, you gotta start somewhere.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's a similar kind of class at Turner Falls High School or not, I have no idea.
I don't know, and I have to admit, I have not taken the time to find out, and that's probably our
I
own
have not
fault.
either.
Should be doing so.
Mhm.
I will make a point. But anyway,
But the Greenfield school system hired this person to teach this class.
So, John, I'm sorry, but just let me ask you one more thing, one more time. The point where it says that you encourage liaison is sufficient, or you want to add to that?
I think I'll leave that alone.
Okay. Okay. So next week we'll meet with Comcast, and then perhaps the week after we can put this to bed?
We need to do the obligations.
We do need to do the
There's one
obligations.
issue.
Yeah,
Bob was saying that the Franklin County Tech might not be included.
mm-hmm,
If I remember when we signed up with Comcast to do the wiring and everything, I think we expected them to wire the tech school as well.
mm-hmm.
And we should have a connection to that. And I don't know whether that's ever been done or not. Seems to me that's always been in limbo.
But we can
It-
find that out
yeah.
next week.
And that's certainly,
Not sooner.
they should be connected, and if they are, then, again, if they have what, a technology, what do you call it? What would it be? What kind of class would it be called? What you call it, videotaping or video creating?
Video production.
Video production, if they have anything like that at all, why in the world aren't we tapping into that so that can go here? Talk about broadening a base. Doesn't make sense not to. Now, I understand there are all kinds of legal issues about having kids on television, or parents saying yes or no, but
Mm-hmm.
if you don't talk about it, you don't solve it.
Right,
Or-
right. Right, absolutely.
Move that.
Do you have something to add?
Well, it sounds like we've arrived at this point in the meeting where one could reasonably ask, so what are the plans going forward?
Plans going forward is to have one more meeting and finish the obligation scorecard, and then my plan is to really have this finished. We have the summary finished, and the obligation scorecard are the points from the contract. If we can go forward with this
Okay,
and bring up
okay,
the rear, so to speak, with this,
okay.
Maybe we should do it all at one fell swoop.
okay.
So I think our next meeting would be to go over the obligations. Met, not met, deficient,
Yeah.
whatever, whatever the
Yeah.
terminology is pretty simple to be
Yeah.
stated.
Our next
And then
meeting,
include our final draft of that along with the final summary report and present that to the board.
Select board.
Yes.
Mhm. So our next meeting, the next meeting will be Comcast on the 8th, so our next meeting could be Wednesday, the 15th?
Does that work
I
for
won't be
everyone?
there.
Well, let's put that out on an email, Eileen, and see what the response is.
Well, I know Lisa is not available on Thursdays. I'm not available on Tuesdays.
Wednesday the 15th.
And the
might
select
work.
board is not available on Monday. So that would be Friday.
Wednesday the 15th would work for me.
Jason?
Which date, 15th?
15th,
As far as I know, and that is a Thursday? again?
Wednesday,
A Wednesday?
Wednesday.
At this time, yeah, the 5 to 7 or the 4 to 6 doesn't get in the way of things, so
Okay.
I'll be
Okay.
good with it.
Great.
John?
John?
Yeah, maybe that works.
Yeah.
Okay, then the next meeting for this contract and everything is gonna be October 15th.
Correct.
And it's gonna be the end one.
And it, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I've got other things
Yeah,
on my plate, as it does everybody else.
yep.
Been a long process.
Yes, it
It's
has.
been a thorough process.
Mark, how long does it
Yes, it
take
has.
for the lawyers down in Boston to put a contract together? A couple of minutes
For what?
for this? I mean, how long does it take to turn it around and spit it out again so that they can?
For the MCCI contract?
Yeah,
My guess would be a contract's gonna be drafted right here in-house and then just sent to them for their
Approval.
approval.
okay, I had mentioned the issue that I thought it'd be good if they had to look at it and get some feedback, oh, that you're gonna do it that way, okay. You know, it doesn't go past Copeland and Page or anybody else
Yeah.
like that? Oh, it does?
That's who it would be
Okay.
sent to.
That's,
Okay, all
I
right.
think that's what I just said. The
Well, you said
contract,
in-house, which.
the
to me
contract will
means-
be drafted, the
In-house.
select board will take your recommendations, this is what I envision. The select board will receive a report from you after your next meeting, and we'll take that under advisement, and we will deal with it somehow soon. And when we have decided what we want, and we've met with MCCI and you guys, and have arrived at what the select board feels should be offered for a contract, and what looks to be acceptable, we will send it to the lawyers, and unless they say something, it'll come back and some kind of a voter action will be taken.
And this has to go to town meeting, if I remember correctly, is that correct?
Well, I don't know. If the recommendation remains a 30-month contract, I don't know if that needs to go to town meeting.
So the lawyers will be able to tell us, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The length of time may not require town meeting approval.
And bear in mind that the final report, that the obligations, as they're stated, are not gonna get reworded. They're gonna be the way they are, the obligations. And all we have to do is make a comment about that obligation. And
So
that's
this
not,
can be finished at the meeting.
this will be done
right at the
fairly
meeting.
quickly. And before that meeting on the 15th, the summary report will be in its final form as well. So
He says confidently, looking at me.
after the 15th, it's gonna be 24 to 48 hours, I would assume.
Did you get this,
that
Jason?
That
I
report
don't
would be
think I
ready
sent
to
this
go.
out.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I do have an email of that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Because the summary
At the end,
report will already
at the
be-
end of the meeting on the 15th, this board needs to vote on a final product.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what we intend to do. We've
I'm
already,
looking, I'm not just looking at you, I'm looking at everybody. Yeah.
well, we've already agreed on the summary report, right? I mean, the summary
We
report.
have, and with Jason's,
Do we have a motion to approve the summary report as edited?
as amended.
Yes.
Yes.
I make a
We're gonna
motion, we
make- we
approve
need
the
a
summary
motion on
report
that.
as edited.
Do we have a motion on that?
Yes, you do. Just stated it.
You just made it?
I just did.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Oh, I forgot the discussion comes before the vote. We already had the discussion.
But also, I'm sorry to say this, but we will have eyes on it before it is delivered to the select board. But it has to be delivered to the select board the next day from the meeting, so it has to be in,
No.
Why is that?
for Monday? for Wendy to put us on the agenda?
If
She
you-
needs
if-
to have something.
If you can make that happen, sure, that would be best case
It would be.
scenario.
Okay, well,
Yes,
I'm
that's
gonna
what
clean
we'll
it up
shoot for.
if, and Jason will get me notes as soon as possible. I'll clean this up and have it ready for the 15th. If Jason can have it on his computer and there are any small grammatical errors to be
Right.
corrected or
So send
anything
that out
else,
to everybody for a
just
final
bam.
readout, just in terms of grammar and spell check and that sort of thing, not for content changes.
And then we'll discuss anything that needs to be discussed at the meeting in the first 5 minutes.
Correct. Sounds good. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Amen.
7:30,
7:30.
that a reasonable time?
That's what it is.
Are you
But that's
pushing
a lot.
that,
Reasonable?
or-
Oh.